So these tables are basically, when OBM and others in the administration worked to put together these formula changes, our analytical the way we thought about this, we were not printout driven. We were not driven by what happens in this district or that district. What we wanted was overall results. Our purpose was as the governor has stated, we wanted a formula that efficiently and effectively drove resources to districts with less capacity to raise money locally to support the education of the children in that district. And so in order to help us think that through, we adopted a convention of breaking the districts up into quintiles, 5 groupings of 122 districts, to get an understanding of the policy choices that we were making and the impact on those quintiles. Because when you look at the printout, the point that the tables basically make is that the aid distributed by quintile is very effectively our formula very effectively targets by quintile aid to those that have lower capacity. But because of all those variables that I mentioned to you, and each of the individual cases, districts, within each of those quintiles, there will be districts who, not every district in the lowest quintile is going to get an increase in aid. And it's because there's 610 districts, there's 610 stories, there's a whole series of variables that are changing in such a way that affects the operation of the formula and therefore the distribution of this aid. And of course, this is something that we got tripped up on last time, that we didn't properly communicate the work that we had done. Because we did, in a way, we did a similar thing. We looked at how does this work, how does the formula work in the broadest perspective. And the fact that there's some districts that are very low capacity, low property wealth, low income, that might get a negative number, or that don't get as much increase as they think they should. That's the result of the individual circumstances that affect that district, the individual variables that are changing. So I just want to emphasize the distribution by quintile. So looking at this table 1, first column is the 5 we basically here are the 5 quintiles. 1 is the lowest capacity, 5 is the highest capacity. This array is based on the capacity measure that we have developed in this formula. And the capacity measure basically takes a valuation index, which basically puts it's the average valuation per pupil. The average valuation per pupil in the state is 1, over a 3-year period is 1, indexed to 1. And then if your average valuation per pupil is higher than that, then you're 1 plus something else, 1.5, 1.8, 2.0. If your average valuation is less than the average valuation, then you are 0.9, 0.8, 0.7. And then we have the income index, which is done the same way. You compare to median income. If you are at the median income, your index is 1. You'd be at 1. And then if your income is above the median, you'd be at 1.2, 1.5, 2.0, and then conversely, if you're below, you'd be 0.8, 0.6, 0.5. And then we take that and we introduce the income factor to modify the valuation factor. It produces a capacity measure. The capacity measure is then in turn converted to a state share percentage, the amount that the state will pay of the total calculated formula aid. So we array the districts and we group them by quintile. First column, quintile. Second column is the estimated enrollment, just for your information. Third column is the FY16 formula amounts. In this column, you note that in the aggregate, the lowest quintile gets $3 billion in aid out of $7.4 billion, and the highest quintile only gets $571. And again, over time, that's what formulas have done. I mean, the higher capacity, the less. So that's not, that's a pattern that you see. But again, the next column over is what's the change? I mean, we adopted policies where we wanted to efficiently target the additional resources we're introducing to the formula to the lower wealth districts. And this chart displays that we did that. Of the $385.6 million in formula aid that will be distributed through the formula as we propose, $188.3 million go to the 20% of the districts with the least capacity. And then it progresses up. So you can see it progresses across the quintiles with more aid being provided to lower wealth districts.